Hey guys, in an effort to branch out my channel and open the door to me talking about a wide range of topics, I wanted to explore something totally different than TV entertainment and gaming today. Music has always been prominent in my life, as it is for many, and there's an artist I've had an interest in for years, that being Trippie Redd. I got into Trippie around 2017, which was later than a lot of his fanbase due to me being from the UK and social media not being what it is now. It was harder to discover underground rappers that were on the rise. The first thing I saw from Trippie was the genius lyric breakdown video for his breakout single Love Scars. I clicked to watch this video because of Trippie's outlandish appearance in the thumbnail, and it had me curious to say the least, but when I heard Trippie harmonising, I was immediately sold. I went into that video expecting to hear something that would align with the mumble rap craze which was the wave at the time, but what I discovered was an artist that was clearly talented and had a lot of potential. So today, I want to do a deep dive on Trippie's career. Did he fulfill his potential? Or has Trippie's career gone to waste? So, to get the full picture of the story, I want to take it back to the early days of Trippie's career. Trippie, like many rappers at the time, came up releasing songs on SoundCloud. In 2014, Trippie started releasing songs such as Sub-Zero and New Ferrari, and these songs were cool but ultimately came about from Trippie just having fun with his homies. He wasn't taking music seriously yet, but even from his first songs, you can hear the raw talent. Now, fast forward a couple of years, Trippie released his first EP, Awakening My Inner Beast, featuring songs such as Green Thumbs and No Way, two songs that now sit on several million streams. He then went on to release 3 more EPs in a short space of time, signalling Trippie was now taking music seriously, and people were starting to notice. Songs I personally love from those early EPs are Triple Double, Hurt to the Bone, and Whelp. And it's also worth noting that one of those early EPs were executively produced by Pierre Bourne, and we all know how successful Pierre went on to be. Trippie had the passion, had talented producers around him, and had great music to back it up, so surely the natural next step would be releasing a project that would truly put him on the map. After gathering a lot of hype in the underground scene, there was no better time to unleash his first proper project. And this is a project that would change Trippie's life forever. A project that he still performs songs from today at concerts. A project that would really put Trippie Redd on the map. This project was none other than A Love Letter to You 1. This project took Trippie's career to another level, shooting him into stardom. It features songs such as Love Scars, a song that is now double platinum, It Takes Time, a song that sits on around 160 million streams, and Romeo and Juliet, a song that also sits at around 160 million streams. Now I mentioned the platinum certificate and the large amount of streams because from this project it was clear, Trippie was no longer a small-time underground artist, he had grown a huge fan base, almost cult-like. It seemed like from here, his career would only keep accelerating to stardom. But it was around this time it was clear Trippie had maturity issues, and often landed himself in feuds and internet dramas with other rappers. After the release of A Love Letter to You, Trippie quickly started to get comparisons to Lil Uzi Vert, which caused a lot of tension between the two artists, and it didn't help when Uzi released a song and named it the same as Trippie's breakout single, naming it Love Scars. It's up for debate why Uzi did this. Was he playing into the internet drama and just being a troll? Or was it an innocent coincidence and Uzi just liked that song name? Well, due to the fact the cover for the song was Uzi on FaceTime with Trippie's close friend and frequent collaborator Cody Shane, it would signal Uzi knew exactly what he was doing and probably named the song Love Scars on purpose to play into the internet drama and discussions around Uzi and Trippie comparisons. Trippie said a few things online accusing Uzi of artistic theft, but the beef soon died down, and it wasn't long before Trippie found himself in another beef with another poppin' rapper at the time. I think we all know who I'm talking about. Yep, you guessed it. 6ix9ine. Now I don't want to go too deep onto this beef because it would probably take a whole video on its own to cover all the ins and outs, but basically all that's relevant is it was an incredibly goofy beef. This beef involved internet skits, going on Instagram live together and arguing, and a whole lot of empty threats without action. If you followed this beef, you'll know a lot about the incidents, particularly with 6ix9ine doing a video with Trippie's ex, but I really don't want to go too deep talking about goofy ass incidents like that. The reason I'm even bringing up these frequent internet beefs is because a lot of people discovered Trippie through these beefs. Every other week we'd see Trippie posted on Academics or The Shade Room, and stuff like this really affected his public image. These beefs overshadowed his talent and great music, and instead, the masses started seeing him as goofy because of all these internet dramas and beefs that he would get involved in. Trippie is still recovering from this to this day, all these years later. His image was affected that bad. Trust me, it was sometimes even hard to be a fan of Trippie because of how corny he would act. But even with all these internet beefs present, Trippie was still locked in musically. Later in 2017, he released a Love Letter to You 2, with hit tracks like Bust Down and In Too Deep, and he was also the sole feature on XXX Tentacion's debut album on the hit single Fuck Love, which is now certified diamond and has almost 2 billion streams. Despite the controversies, the Trippie Red hype was real, and his fanbase was constantly growing. So let's fast forward slightly to 2018. Surely Trippie would start to realise that beefing other rappers was doing no good for his career, and he would start to solely focus on music. Well, unfortunately, Trippie soon fell back to his old ways and was involved with another beef with fellow high-profile rapper XXX Tentacion. This beef was weird because Trippie and X came up together in the early SoundCloud days and seemed to be really good friends. The beef kinda came out of nowhere, and it's one that I want to be sensitive when talking about due to X's passing and how that affected Trippie. Anyway, Trippie went on IG Live calling X a bitch, saying that he stole both his and Ski Mask's style. It really seemed like a weird, petty beef, and I'm sure that there was a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, but ultimately, this beef did no favours for Trippie's career at the time. Trippie had just started getting a lot of success musically, and instead of enjoying that success, he was on IG Live calling other rappers with a bigger fan base a bitch. It was just a weird time back then because most X fans were fans of Trippie and vice versa. I mean, they literally have a certified diamond song together. I know I didn't want to see my two favourite artists beefing. I just wanted to enjoy the music, man. But this is why it became exhausting being a fan of Trippie. It became a pattern where a lot of us fans would often be frustrated at Trippie. His own Reddit community would be constantly outing Trippie for his questionable decisions. He was pushing his own fan base away with all these antics. We loved the music, but we didn't love the guy making it. But later that year, in the summer of 2018, X shockingly got killed, and this death had a huge impact on Trippie. After X's passing, Trippie had shared screenshots of a conversation Trippie and X had on IG where X was offering Trippie advice and words of encouragement, showing that they had squashed their beef and had started to reconcile their friendship. X's death seemed to break Trippie. Despite the beef, it was apparent X inspired Trippie both musically and as a person, and after his death, Trippie vowed to continue X's legacy by stop getting involved in petty internet beefs and just focus on music that inspired the youth. And maybe this was a sign Trippie was maturing and growing as a character. A couple of months later, Trippie released his full-length debut album, Life's a Trip. Life's a Trip was exceptionally well received, selling 72k first week and debuting number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, a huge increase from previous projects. This album highlighted Trippie's musical maturity and featured hit songs such as Taking a Walk and Dark Knight Dummo. To this day, this album is viewed by many as Trippie's best piece of work, and on Life's a Trip, Trippie experimented with his more vulnerable side with songs like Together and Underwater Fly Zone, and he also showcased his lyrical side with songs like Revenge and Missing My Idols. There was just so many different vibes on this album, and Trippie really showcased his talent and versatility. The album still holds up great today, and I'm sure there is still many Trippie fans that have it in their rotation. Projects like this really helped Trippie's public image and helped the fans of hip-hop really take Trippie seriously as an artist. It wasn't just internet drama and beefing other rappers with Trippie, he was actually capable of releasing solid pieces of work. Despite also being arrested in 2018 and rumours spreading that he had a verse removed off Drake's smash hit song God's Plan, Trippie made up for all that with a great album like Life's a Trip. So would he be able to continue putting out solid pieces of work and continue to evolve his sound? Or would he never be able to reach the heights of Life's a Trip again and just become another forgotten SoundCloud rapper? Well, Trippie released several projects in late 2018 and 2019, the first being A Love Letter to You 3, a very well received EP continuing his iconic A Love Letter to You series. The EP sold 84k first week and featured hit single Topanga, and with his record-breaking number of sales for this EP, it seemed as if Trippie Red's career was about to peak. Following the success of A Love Letter to You 3, Trippie felt it was time to release his second full-length studio album. This project was named Explanation Mark, taking inspiration from X's hit album Question Mark. The album sold pretty well, selling 51k first week and debuting at number 3 on the Billboard, but to say it sold pretty well, there was an overwhelming mixed reception in the fanbase. There seemed to be no standout hit song on the album, and despite continuing his versatile selection of songs for the album, it didn't quite land the same as Life's a Trip. There was also more unneeded controversy with a particular song on that album, They Afraid of You, featuring Playboi Carti. And I say featuring Playboi Carti, but that only lasted 6 days, as the song was mysteriously removed off streaming platforms 6 days after the release. Why this happened? No one knows for sure. Many say Trippie willingly took the song off the album after seeing the public say Carti's verse was the only good part of the whole album. Others say Carti requested the song off the album because he didn't like the song. It's unclear why Trippie removed the song off the album, but it was a pretty embarrassing situation for Trippie, as many listeners felt that that was the best song on the album. Anyway, again, it was just more unneeded drama for Trippie Redd to deal with that made him kinda look bad in the public eye. So after the underwhelming reception from his first album of 2019, Trippie vowed to make up for it with the next continuation of his A Love Letter to You series, A Love Letter to You 4. And made up for it he did. A Love Letter to You 4 is Trippie's most successful album to date, selling 104k first week, and bagging Trippie his first #1 album on the Hot 100. Despite all the hurdles Trippie had faced in his career to date, he continued to prove doubters wrong when releasing albums such as A Love Letter to You 4. The album highlights Trippie's versatility once again, with vibes ranging from heartfelt ballads such as the poetic intro track Lorray to spacey trap bangers such as Six Kiss featuring YNW Melly and Juice WRLD. At this point in time, Trippie's public image was probably at its best. He distanced himself from cringy internet beefs and put all his focus into releasing great music. It's hard to understand Trippie when it comes to releasing music due to the inconsistency in quality, but it's safe to say if he kept the mentality he had when making A Love Letter to You 4, he may have went on to get several more #1 records over his career. So, it's clear after the release of A Love Letter to You 4 and the positive feedback, Trippie's career had peaked. Could he use this peak to keep striding forwards, or was it a downward slope from here? Well, in 2020 he released his third studio album, Pegasus. The album sold 60k first week and debuted at #2 on the Hot 100. The album clearly sold pretty well, despite a fairly big decrease in sales from his previous album, but how did the fans feel about it? Well, I think the best way to describe Pegasus is meh. Trippie had promised that this would be his best work to date, like he does with every album, and vowed to his fans that this album would be musically timeless. It was bold claims from Trippie and the fans were hyped, but when it released it ultimately did not live up to the hype. The tracklist was congested, the songs were safe and things we had heard before from Trippie, the features were underwhelming, and the album cover was, well, you be the judge of that. For an album with 26 tracks, there are only maybe 10 of those that really hit. Excitement was a cool lead single for sure, and songs like V12 and Sun God are vintage Trippie. But was it his best work to date? Nope. Was this album full of timeless songs that we're all going to play for our grandkids? Definitely not. Despite the underwhelming reception from fans, it certainly wasn't a flop, just a slight decline from A Love Letter to You 4. Trippie clearly worked hard on the album, but it became more evidence that Trippie's inconsistency musically was a major problem for him. Later that year we got his rock album Neon Shark. I personally liked this album even though again, it understandably got mixed reviews. A lot of Trippie fans listened to him for his turned up music, so making a rock album was a bold call from Trippie, and I respect it to be honest. It felt like a bit of a side quest and I really think Trippie's in his bag when experimenting with rock and grunge beats. It's something I wish he'd do more to be honest. In 2021 we got Trip at Night, an album with direction and a cool concept. Around this time Trippie's image in the public was pretty good to be honest. He went from being seen as just another goofy SoundCloud rapper to a staple in the rap game. People fucked with the new rage sound he'd delved into. He had missed the rage chart with Playboi Carti, and it seemed even though it had been like 5 or 6 years since Trippie Redd blew up, he was evolving with the times and adjusting his sound due to the emo rap genre dying, and he was showing that he's capable of evolving musically. Trip at Night was one of the albums that pioneered the hyperpop rage vibe that we all still hear a lot today. Trippie had realised the type of music he was making was not hip with the kids anymore, and he adjusted, and Trip at Night probably got Trippie a whole new group of younger fans. Trippie had went from being in conversations with Juice WRLD, XXX Tentacion, and Lil Uzi Vert being the topic, to being in conversations with Yeet, Ken Carson and Playboi Carti being the topic. I wouldn't go as far to call it a whole brand switch. Trippie was still capable of delving into different genres, but it was certainly a hint of the style of music Trippie would be making going forward. But did Trippie's artistic change pay off? Fast forward to 2022, it was a quiet year for Trippie. He had no major drops and this was the start of the brain-rotted TikTok kids speculating that Trippie had fallen off. Trippie, however, was continuously hinting a new album was coming, and the fans were still hyped. It seemed the year break Trippie took was a risk that didn't pay off, with his next album being the first major signs Trippie's career was on a major decline. In 2023, Trippie finally releases his next piece of work, Mansion Music. And this, for me personally, was the first time that I really had doubts over the direction Trippie was going in. The album was a big decrease in sales, selling 42k first week despite the big name features such as Travis Scott and Juice WRLD, and the reception for the album was just as bad as the sales, with rap fans on the internet calling it the worst album to come out in 2023. Even many of Trippie's die-hard fans were slating the album. It lacked ambition, direction, and ultimately just lacked effort. After taking a year off, fans were hoping Trippie would come back with a bang, but instead he came back with a stinker. Mansion Music has no real highlights. It has the same bloated track list as Pegasus, but without any redeeming qualities. Now, some viewers of this video may think I'm being harsh on this album, but when you compare it to some of his earlier work, it just seems like it was missing that spark. It was missing that vibe that makes Trippie Redd albums what they are. It was just a generic trap album, and fans soon became eager for Trippie to go back to his old sound. So, in the summer of 2023, Trippie knew he had to win fans back, and what better way than to revert back to his beloved A Love Letter to You series, releasing the 5th installment, A Love Letter to You 5. The hype was real for this album. It had promising snippets, Trippie seemed locked in again, and it seemed like he was going back to the sound that his fans know and love. So it lived up to the hype, right? Unfortunately not. A Love Letter to You 5 only sold 38k first week, 66k less than his previous addition to the series, A Love Letter to You 4. It debuted at 13 on the Hot 100, and even though the numbers are poor for Trippie's standard, do the numbers really matter if his core fans enjoyed the album? Well, unfortunately for the most part that wasn't the case either. A Love Letter to You 5 seemed like an attempt at going back to his old sound, but once again it could not capture that same magic. Fans were underwhelmed and confused. How could Trippie fuck up the final installment of his A Love Letter to You series? The album was repetitive, bland, and less vocally impressive compared to earlier albums. I wanted to love this album so bad when it dropped, and songs like Thy Motion and How You Alive were cool, but it ultimately fell short. It wasn't up for debate anymore. Trippie's career was on a rapid decline, and later in the video I'm going to give my theories as to why I think this is happening. The 2022 and 2023 were years to forget for Trippie and his fanbase, and us fans were left with the question, what is going on with Trippie in his career? He tried several rebrands to leave the dying emo rap wave he was a part of, and when that didn't work, he reverted back to his old sound, creating heartfelt music, but that didn't land either. Trippie's next piece of work was going to be vital in terms of getting his career back on track, but I don't think Trippie realised that, as in late 2023 and early 2024, he released a duo of EPs, St. Michael version 1 and version 2. It was unclear on the direction Trippie wanted to go with by dropping 2 EPs. A passion project, you could say? Well, it seemed to lack passion. A collection of songs for his core fanbase? Well, the fans didn't love the 2 EPs either. The EPs both sold around 7k first week, a huge drop off from even his lesser selling albums, and it seemed like another huge backward step for Trippie. When Trippie needed to drop a statement album to remind fans why we loved Trippie in the first place, he dropped 2 lackluster EPs. Don't get me wrong, there was a couple of decent songs on both tapes, but the production lacked that oomph Trippie Redd beats usually have. His music videos to promote the album were low effort and low budget, and the EPs lacked any real promotion from Trippie himself. Songs like Skeletons and Psychotic Lunatic make these EPs just about listenable, but even those songs just feel like Trippie attempting to make less good versions of songs he's made before. And unfortunately, it was around this point where I checked out personally as a Trippie Redd fan. I stopped checking his Reddit page for new snippets and new album updates. I stopped checking his IG to see what he'd been posting, and worst of all, I wasn't listening to his music much anymore. Trippie will always have classics. I could sit here all day naming all my favourite Trippie songs and how they affected me differently, but you can have as many classics as you want. If you aren't dropping new music that lives up to the bar set for you, then most fans will ultimately get bored of repeatedly listening to the same songs they have listened to 1,000 times already. And the numbers speak for themselves. Going from selling over 100k first week and getting number 1 albums to selling 7k first week and not even charting is crazy work. At this point in Trippie's career, it seemed like he needed to take some time off, take a long hard look in the mirror and remember who the fuck he is. How can a guy who made songs like Lorray, Dark Knight Dummo, Love Scars, How You Feel and I Tried Loving be happy with the work that he is putting out currently. I know some fans will defend him to this day, and I respect that. I was one of those, and every now and again you'd hear a snippet that would make you believe he's still got it. But I also know a lot of fans will agree with my frustration. It's been years since Trippie has put out a great piece of work, and some fans are allowed to be frustrated because of that. And unfortunately, it only gets worse from here somehow. It seemed like Trippie did not in fact take a look in the mirror and remember who the fuck he was, because in late 2024, he released his collaboration mixtape with Machine Gun Kelly called Genre Sadboy. Look, it's a cringe album name, it's got cringe songs, and I think most people will agree Machine Gun Kelly is pretty cringe. I don't want to talk about this EP too much because it is a collab tape, so I'll give Trippie the benefit of the doubt, and there are some songs on this tape where Trippie carries MGK and makes a song just about listenable, but to no one's surprise the album sold shockingly, selling 17k first week and charting at number 30 on the Billboard Hot 100. And all I have to really say about this album is why Trippie? What made you think this would be a good idea? Your fans can't even defend you anymore because of your last few albums, and this is how you repay them. A collab with MGK. Damn, bro. Look, I think the less that's said about that tape, the better. So let's move on to more recent times, 2025. Apart from a verse on a KSI song that became a meme, nothing much has happened in the past year or so. Trippie did seemingly have a whole album leak that he had been teasing on social media, Live, Love, Laugh, Die, which caused him to go on a Twitter rant blaming fans for leaks. But the lead singles he did drop for the album before it leaked, such as Bando Kid and Left Wrist Right Wrist, weren't revolutionary. I mean, Trippie repeating the bar, I need an abortion, is definitely not revolutionary. But they weren't bad songs, and I heard the leak Double M Gang and that sounded decent, so maybe the album would have been cool, who knows. But due to the leaks, Trippie decided it was best he scrap the album and start working on a fresh new project. Trippie has always had troubles with leakers, to be fair. He had leakers trying to extort millions of dollars out of him just so they wouldn't leak his music.
I was held for ransom with my project. They wanted me to pay them $1 million because they had all my records, all the features. Some hackers. They have been hacking and leaking like crazy. Like at least my last 2-3 albums, I don't know.
I do feel for Trippie in that regard, but let's hope it was a blessing in disguise, as Trippie has now started teasing his new upcoming album, NDA. At this point, to be honest, I think it's impossible for me to get hyped for an upcoming Trippie project. He seemed to change his sound to fit the more modern trending style of rap that you'd hear on TikTok, rather than embracing the true artist that he is, experimenting with what fans call the nasal voice.
Now she under my spell, feel like James Bond, number 9 for my smell. And my bitch slime, RSG got climb.
But what I will do is give some thoughts on Trippie's upcoming album on the info that we do have, such as confirmed snippets and promotion from Trippie himself. So, the first thing that I'll say is Trippie's promotional work has become awful recently. Pretty much all we've gotten is a bunch of pointless IG stories with the hashtag NDA. I don't know if this is Trippie's idea of building hype for an album, but I feel like we need a bit more than that. Trippie's best promotional work to date was for A Love Letter to You 4. It consisted of snippets that sounded great, cool promotional videos, and lead singles with high budget music videos, and surprise surprise, it was his best selling album to date. Recently, we also got a snippet of a song Trippie posted to his ex-girlfriend Alex twerking. Why he thought that was a good idea, I do not know. The song sounded pretty good, but posting videos of that demon twerking to his music isn't a good look. There was also a snippet played on Twitch streamers Tylil's stream. Tylil previewed it for the fans and it sounded very good, a promising snippet for sure. In terms of features, the album supposedly confirmed features of Tory Lanez, Party Next Door, Kanye West, Young Thug and Chris Brown. Some pretty big names and they are interesting features for sure, and getting Kanye is pretty huge, despite all the recent antics with Kanye. So all in all, there is some promise for the album, and despite the lack of promotional work from Trippie and a lack of singles dropping, the snippets and features seem promising. Is it going to be enough to salvage Trippie's career? Who knows? I mean, hopefully it is, but it's going to take a lot.
Goodbye, bitch, your first Rolex.
So now we've reached the present day of 2025 and touched on Trippie's upcoming work, I want to briefly theorise on why I think Trippie's career has gone the way it's gone. It seemed like for years and years, his career has been on the decline. So what I want to do is think of the reasons of why this has been happening. Well, reason number 1 is label issues. It's a popular theory within Trippie Redd's fanbase that his current label, 10k projects, have been slacking in terms of promoting Trippie's recent work and have been favouring more trending artists such as Ice Spice. And while I do not know all the details of Trippie's label situation, it does seem like his music videos have got less of a budget to work with nowadays, going from movie-like music videos with Dark Knight Dummer to now using lesser-known videographers and shooting a lot of his videos in car parks in his music studio. While it could be a valid reason for Trippie's decline, I personally think it's a bit of a cop-out, and there's more to it than just blaming Trippie's label. And moving on to reason number 2, is a lack of effort from Trippie himself. Have you ever heard of the saying that it's hard to get up for work in the morning when you're sleeping in silk sheets? Well, I think this could apply to Trippie. Trippie blew up when he was only a teenager, and has likely had millions in the bank before he even turned 20, so I think there could be a psychological element at play, where Trippie is struggling to stay motivated due to all the success he's had early in his career. A lot of fans think he has lost that passion, and some of his music would back that up. Trippie used to obsess with making timeless music, as he called it, yet now he releases songs like Left Wrist, Right Wrist. I mean, does Trippie really think that that classes as timeless music? Seems like he has lost a lot of that drive he once had to be one of the greats, and one of the reasons he may have lost that drive leads perfectly into my next point. So, reason 3 for Trippie's decline: the death of emo rap and close friends dying. Since Trippie blew up, a lot of his close friends within his circle that he regularly made music with have tragically passed away. In 2018, X passed, and the following year, close friend and collaborator Juice WRLD also passed. These 2 deaths clearly affected Trippie personally, but also affected the emo rap genre. The pioneers had all passed away, and it felt like Trippie was left alone in that space.
Everybody from my era is gone. They all passed away. Everybody that was, coming from the time period I came from, I was the last one. They was kind of before me, but it's all the same era. It was the sad music.
Not only did it seem like Trippie could not carry the emo rap genre on his back by himself, but the way these deaths affected Trippie personally seemed to really play a part in his career trajectory. Close friends Trippie came up with had passed away, and I assume that left Trippie feeling isolated and alone in the music game, and that isolation could no doubt affect Trippie's love for making music. He's also had numerous other close friends die, such as Chris King, and you have to feel for Trippie, man. It must be a lot to deal with, and there's no doubt all these deaths of close friends may have zapped some of the love and passion for the game out of him. And finally, my last reason for Trippie's downfall is natural artistic decline and poor creative decisions. As we have touched on in this deep dive in Trippie's career, there has been a clear decline, and maybe one of those reasons is he just isn't as good as he used to be anymore, and there isn't anything more to it. It's clear to see that he can't hit the same melodies as his Lil 14 days, and I don't think it's a stretch to say that 2017 to 2019 was Trippie's peak, so maybe all we're seeing is a natural decline from that peak. Now, if there wasn't more to it, and I didn't think Trippie still had more to give musically, then I wouldn't be making this video, but I think there's a real possibility that a part of Trippie's decline is his own decline with his artistry. Furthermore, Trippie has become less aware of what fans want from him. He doesn't drop grails that fans have been wanting him to drop for years. He doesn't experiment enough anymore. He recycles lyrics and flows, and I think this is all a part of Trippie's decline as an artist, but also Trippie not being aware of what fans want from him. He should be working with the best videographers in the game and creating cinematic visuals like he used to. He should be working with the best producers, and he should be collaborating with the best musicians, not Machine Gun Kelly and KSI, man. Trippie is still young, and still has a long career ahead of him, and to be honest, he's already made it in life. But if he wants to stamp his legacy in music and be a timeless figure, he needs to find that love for music again, and remember what made Trippie Red, Trippie Red. Okay guys, I know this video was a long one, but I'm hoping that some hardcore Trippie fans enjoy this deep dive. Obviously, this is just my opinion, and if you share a different one, feel free to let me know in the comments. Do you think that Trippie can salvage his career? Let me know your thoughts. And yeah, thanks for watching.